It's a thinking problem. We don't understand. Through critical reflection, within the community of life systems, we've talked a lot about that, in a time developmental context. Well, this is something that has also been talked about, that in the universe story, Thomas Berry and Brian Swilm say that the most fundamental difference of understanding in our time is that we've changed from a sense of cosmos to one of cosmogenesis. We live in a world in process, and it proceeds through a series of irreversible transformations. That has both a good element and a bad element. I mean, extinction is forever. I mean, this is a one-time endowment. The Earth is a one-time endowment. I mean, these people who want to go live on Mars are crazy, you know? Who wants to go live on Mars, you know? This is a one-time endowment. It proceeds through a series of irreversible transformations. But the good part of that is that there's creativity. There's creativity. Anyway, so he says, in a time developmental context, by means of shared story, by means of story, we'll talk about that, and shared dream experience, and we've talked some about that already. But anyway, so we emphasize reflection, story, and shared dream experiences of ways of enabling, get this, the creative advance. The creative advance. This is like fundamental, that the universe is creative. All of us are creative. We're all creating this advance. Life is an adventure. A creative advance needed to bring into being a new mode of human civilizational presence. And also discerning the practical steps leading toward the ecozoic. CES, now, and this is very fundamental to Thomas's work, that instead of a dead universe, a mechanical universe that's a backdrop for the human, it's a universe that's meaningful, continuously evolving, and relational. In such a universe, the ecozoic is not something to be arrived at. Now that's so fundamental too. When you understand we're in a time developmental context, you don't get there and keep it. It's not something that we arrive at one day, we suddenly become, move into this period. It's something that has to be ever created, ongoing created. Its hallmarks are inclusiveness, interdependence, and appreciation. The appreciation, I searched at this area for the word to use there, but it has to do with valuing. Valuing. We have to appreciate what's in the world that's around us. Communion, differentiation, and subjectivity, and sensitivity, adaptability, and responsibility. The sensitivity is kind of the things that Carolyn was mentioning. It's that we need a new way of sensing, understanding the world that we're present in. And this adaptability, this is really going to come into play in the future. We have this idea that, we know it's not true. The whole Earth used to be one mass continent, but we treat property as though it's forever, right? And if the seas come in, we just build walls, right? Well, that's not really adapt. And we have to be able to live as humans in a world that's constantly changing. This is part of the new things that we have to learn. And responsibility. I think the rights concept is important. I'm actually writing an article now on the rights of nature. But there was one person who told me that in the indigenous traditions, at least some of them, that there are no rights, there's just responsibilities. And that the idea is that you have to do these rituals and you have to live this way in order to keep the universe going. So, you've probably heard about it, the change of the years, that you really had to go through that dance or the year wouldn't actually change. Well, maybe not we don't want to go back to those kinds of understandings, but we have to do certain things in order for the universe to work. We have responsibilities. And something that we haven't really dwelled much on this conference, but it's very important. It involves more just and cooperative relationships among humans, as well as transform relationships of humans with a larger community of life. I want to go now to the Ecozoic Society. You have a paper. You know, I think we had a series. It was a set of questions that Thomas often asked. Where are we? How do we get here? Where are we going? And I added one, how do we get there? Which is very important. But where are we is so important. It's so important. Now, you look outside. I mean, I go through this like every day. I mean, I can get comfortable with this life, like this, in this nice building, in my nice home. But we're able to see way beyond this, and we know that there's things on the horizon that are going to dramatically change our way of life. So I'm concluding that the way we are living is really not viable, that we really have to have very fundamental changes. And it has to involve justice on a much broader scale than we have, that it's just, we can't just become a lifeboat. Not unless we want terrorism forever. Not unless we want to live in a world that is a world of paranoia and fear, which is the one that we are living in. I mean, that's not a place for the human spirit to flourish. That's not a place for creativity. So we need a new story. Thomas makes this point over and over. And he talks about the story that we've discovered through science. I've gone to some effort to point out that it's not just the scientific facts. That's not the point. It's the meaning that we give to that story, because the facts will change. The so-called facts will change. But it's the meaning we give to understanding that we live in an evolutionary universe and that we're integral with the universe. And then in human history, my story is like this. I could work on it some more, but I mean, there was these hominids, and then there was this long development of the human-like species, and then about 250,000 years ago, or maybe 150, our present species, Homo sapiens, came into being. And at 70,000 years, 30,000, there was a great burst of art and language and so forth that gave us our basic means of cultural expression. And then civilization, as we know it, began with agriculture. And then there was the great classical civilizations that came into being, and the axial age, which gave us our interior understandings. And that moved on through medieval period and feudal period to modernity in 1500. And now we come to this. And the way I think of it is that what we have to go through now is as big a change as occurred 10,000 years ago with agriculture. I mean, Thomas puts it differently. He puts it like in the very broadest possible perspective you can put it in, which he says that humans have gone through difficulties before, but they've never gone through a change in the entire geobiological system. Well, what he was saying was that each time there's been a change in the Mesozoic to the Cenozoic, or the Paleozoic to the Mesozoic, there was a mass extinction. And then the Earth reinvented how it was going to live. And he said that all was given to us without our human consultation, but it will never work that way again if we want to have a hopeful future. And if the human being has any real meaning. I mean, some people seem to be willing to say that, well, if humans go extinct, that's fine. But that's really not Thomas's perspective on it. He saw the human as a very important expression of the universe, as one who had a unique contribution to make to the universe. So he would say that, this is like beginning a whole geobiological era again. But I like to think of it as like it's a new civilization.